Hannah Kim crawled through the narrow maintenance tunnel, her small flashlight cutting through the darkness. The metal walls pressed close around her as she checked the ship's power systems. Above her, she could hear the sound of music and laughter. From the dining hall where everyone else was enjoying the fancy dinner, she did not mind being down here alone. The other cadets were upstairs eating with alien diplomats and making small talk. Hannah preferred the quiet hum of the ship's engines and the honest work of fixing things. As a human from Earth, she was used to being different from everyone else anyway. The GSV Harmony's Edge was a beautiful ship. It belonged to the Galactic Academy and was on a peaceful mission to the Kepler Nebula. Captain Viejo Park, another human, was in charge. He was a good captain who had fought in the wars when humans first joined the galaxy. Hannah respected him a lot. Her best friend Minho Lee was probably upstairs right now, trying not to spill food on his dress uniform. He always got nervous at formal events. Ambassador Neri Choi would be giving speeches about peace and friendship between species. Instructor Dayan Song would be watching everything with her sharp eyes, making sure the cadets behaved properly. Hannah smiled as she worked. She was 19 years old and in her third year at the academy. She studied how different alien species lived and how to fight tactically if needed. Most aliens found humans strange and scary. Earth was what they called a Class 12 death world. This meant it was so dangerous that the creatures living there became very tough and hard to kill. The galaxy had many peaceful worlds with gentle creatures. But Earth had storms that could destroy cities, animals that hunted humans for food, diseases that killed millions, and weather that changed from burning hot to freezing cold. Humans had to become strong and smart and never give up, or they would die. This made other aliens nervous around humans. Some thought humans were violent savages. Others thought they were fascinating but dangerous, like keeping a pet tiger. Hannah was tired of both reactions. She just wanted to be treated normally. She finished checking the power coupling and moved to the next section. The tunnel was even smaller here, but Hannah was not very tall and could fit easily. Many of her alien classmates would never be able to crawl through spaces this tight. The Sorok were too big, the Klaxons had too many arms and legs, and the gas-based Vorthak could not even take solid form in small spaces. As she worked, Hannah thought about home. Seoul was a huge city with millions of people. Her parents ran a small restaurant and wanted her to stay safe on Earth, but Hannah wanted to explore the stars and help humans find their place in the galaxy. The academy was the best way to do that. The ship's computer made a soft beeping sound. Hannah looked at her scanner and saw that all systems were working perfectly. The Harmony's Edge was well built and maintained. She was proud to serve on such a fine vessel, even if it was just a training ship. Suddenly, the lights went red and alarms started blaring. Hannah's heart jumped. Red lights meant danger. She grabbed her communicator and tried to call the bridge. Captain Park, this is Cadet Kim in Maintenance Section 7. What's happening? Static filled her ears. The communicator was not working. That was very bad. Ship communications never failed unless something was seriously wrong. Hannah crawled quickly toward the nearest access panel. She needed to get to a main corridor and find out what was going on. As she moved, the ship shook violently. She was thrown against the tunnel wall and felt pain shoot through her shoulder. That was not normal ship movement. The Harmony's Edge had good stabilizers. The only thing that could shake the ship like that was weapons fire or a collision. Hannah's training kicked in. She moved faster through the tunnel. Ignoring the pain in her shoulder. She reached the access panel and listened carefully before opening it. She could hear heavy footsteps and voices speaking in languages she did not recognize. That was wrong. Everyone on this ship should be speaking Standard Galactic or their native languages, which Hannah knew. Very carefully, she opened the panel just a crack and looked out. What she saw made her blood run cold. Aliens in black armor were walking down the corridor carrying energy weapons. These were not Academy personnel or diplomats. These were soldiers, and they did not belong here. Pirates, it had to be pirates. One of them was a tall Sorok with dark green scales and yellow eyes. He had scars on his face and arms that showed he was a fighter. Another was a klaxon, an insect-like creature with 4 arms and compound eyes. The third was something Hana had never seen before, a species with gray skin and tentacles instead of hair. They moved like professionals. This was not a random attack. They knew where they were going and what they were doing. Someone had planned this very carefully. Hana closed the panel and tried to think. The pirates must have attacked during the dinner when most people were together in one place. That would make it easy to capture everyone at once. But she was down here alone, which meant she was probably the only person on the ship who was still free. Her training told her to try to escape and call for help. But her heart told her she could not leave her friends and teachers to die or be taken prisoner. Captain Park had always said that humans never abandon their own people. It was one of the things that made other species respect and fear them. Hana checked her equipment. She had a basic toolkit, a scanner, a small emergency light, and her communicator that was not working. She was not armed and was wearing a simple work uniform instead of armor. Against 30 or 40 heavily armed pirates, she had almost no chance, but she was human, and humans did not give up just because the odds were bad. Earth had taught them that survival meant fighting even when fighting seemed impossible. Every human carried the genes of ancestors who had survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and natural disasters that would have wiped out gentler species. Hana took a deep breath and started planning. She knew this ship better than anyone except the senior engineers. She knew where the weapons were stored, how the life support systems worked, and where people might be hiding. Most importantly, she knew things about human biology and psychology that the pirates would not expect. The galaxy thought of humans as either brutal savages or interesting curiosities. What they did not understand was that humans were survivors above all else. They could adapt to almost anything, think their way out of impossible situations, and keep fighting long after other species would have given up. Hana crawled deeper into the maintenance tunnels. She had work to do. The pirates had made one big mistake. They had trapped themselves on a ship with a human who had nothing left to lose and everything to fight for. Above her, she could hear more footsteps and shouting. The pirates were probably gathering all the prisoners in one place and making demands. They would want money or information or safe passage to somewhere else, but first they would have to deal with her. And Hana Kim was about to show them why Earth was called a death world and why humans were the most dangerous species in the galaxy. When their friends were in trouble, the hunt was about to begin. Hana moved through the ship's maintenance tunnels like a ghost. The metal passages were dark and cramped, but she knew every twist and turn. She had spent months learning the ship's layout during her engineering rotations. Now that knowledge might save everyone's life. She reached a junction where several tunnels met and stopped to listen. Through the thin walls, she could hear voices and movement. The pirates were spreading out through the ship, searching rooms and securing areas. They worked fast and efficiently. This was definitely not their first hijacking. Hana found a computer terminal hidden behind a maintenance panel. These terminals were scattered throughout the ship for emergency repairs. She connected her scanner to it and tried to access the ship's internal sensors. Most of the security systems had been shut down, but some basic functions were still working. What she saw on her small screen made her stomach twist with fear and anger. The main dining hall was full of people sitting on the floor with their hands behind their heads. She could see her classmates, the diplomats, and the ship's crew all gathered together under guard. Captain Park was there, along with Minho, Ambassador Choi, and Instructor Song. Around them stood armed pirates. Hana counted at least 20 in the dining hall alone, and there were probably more throughout the ship. They wore different types of armor and carried various weapons, which meant they came from many different species working together. The leader appeared to be a large Sorok with silver scales and a decorated uniform. He was pacing back and forth in front of the prisoners, clearly in charge. 2 other pirates stood near him. One was a massive creature covered in thick fur, and the other looked like a walking tree with bark-like skin. Hana watched as the Sorok leader pointed at Captain Park and said something she could not hear. The captain shook his head firmly. The pirate leader struck him across the face, and Captain Park fell to the side but did not cry out. Hannah clenched her fists. Hurting Captain Park was a big mistake. She switched to different camera feeds and saw more pirates in the corridors and important ship areas. They had taken control of the bridge, the engine room, and the weapons systems. The ship was completely under their control. Any normal rescue would be impossible, but Hannah was not thinking about a normal rescue. She accessed the ship's communication logs and found something interesting. Before the attack, there had been a brief transmission from inside the ship to somewhere. Outside, someone on board had sent a signal just minutes before the pirates arrived. That meant there was a traitor among the crew or passengers. The thought made her angry, but it also gave her useful information. The traitor would have told the pirates about the ship's defenses, the number of people on board, and probably the location of valuable items or information. They knew too much to be fighting blind. Hannah pulled up the ship's personnel files and started looking for clues. Who would betray them? Who had access to the information the pirates clearly possessed? She made a mental list of suspects and decided to investigate later. Right now, she needed to start fighting back. She crawled to a different section of the tunnel system and found what she was looking for, an access point to the ship's environmental controls. Every space vessel had complex systems for managing air, water, temperature, gravity, and lighting. Most people never thought about them because they worked automatically, but Hannah had studied these systems carefully. She knew that environmental controls could be powerful weapons if used correctly. Different alien species had different needs for survival. What was comfortable for one species could be harmful, or even deadly to another. She began making small changes to the ship's systems. Nothing dramatic that would hurt the prisoners, but enough to make the pirates uncomfortable and confused. She lowered the oxygen level slightly in areas where only pirates were present. Most species would feel tired and dizzy, but humans could function normally with less oxygen because Earth's atmosphere had trained them to be efficient. Next, she adjusted the gravity in certain corridors. She made it 30% heavier in areas where she had seen pirates walking. Most aliens would find the extra weight exhausting, but humans from Earth were used to fighting against strong gravity. It would slow the pirates down without affecting her ability to move. The lighting was next. She switched several sections to wavelengths that human eyes could see clearly, but that would be dim or confusing to other species. The Klaxons relied on compound eyes that worked differently from human vision. The tree-like aliens used light-sensitive patches on their bark. By changing the light spectrum, she could give herself an advantage. While she worked, Hannah thought about what the pirates wanted. They were not just random criminals looking for easy money. The way they had targeted this specific ship during a diplomatic mission suggested they were after something particular. Probably information or important prisoners. Ambassador Choi would be valuable to many groups. She was involved in sensitive negotiations between different galactic governments. Captain Park had military knowledge from the integration wars. Some of the other diplomats carried secrets about trade agreements and territorial disputes, but there was something else. Hannah remembered hearing rumors about new human military technologies being developed, things that other species wanted to learn about or steal. Earth's weapons and tactics were still mysterious to much of the galaxy. Because humans fought differently than everyone else, if the pirates were working for a government or military organization, they might be trying to kidnap specific people or steal classified information. That would explain why they had inside help and why they were being so careful with the prisoners. Instead of just robbing the ship and leaving, Hannah finished her work on the environmental systems and moved to a new location. She needed to start gathering intelligence about the pirates' plans and weaknesses. Every species had things they feared or could not handle well. She would find those weaknesses and use them. Through another camera feed, she watched the pirates in the dining hall. The Sorok leader was talking to someone on a communicator. She could not hear the words, but his body language suggested he was receiving orders from someone else. This was definitely part of a larger plan. One of the guards kicked Minho when he tried to help an injured diplomat. Hannah felt anger burn in her chest. These pirates had no idea what they had done by threatening her friends. They thought they were dealing with a simple training ship full of soft academy students and peaceful diplomats. They were about to learn why humans were classified as coming from a death world. Earth had not made its children gentle and weak. It had made them tough and dangerous and impossible to break. When humans were cornered and their loved ones were threatened, they became something that scared even the most feared species in the galaxy. Hannah checked her tools and started planning her next moves. She had maybe 12 hours before a rescue. Ship could arrive, and that was only if someone had managed to send a distress signal before the communications were cut. She could not wait for help from outside. The pirates had superior numbers, better weapons, and control of the ship. But they had made one critical error. They had left one human free, and that human was now very, very angry. The real fight was about to begin. Hannah began her war against the pirates with patience and planning. She knew that rushing into battle would only get her killed and leave her friends with no hope of rescue. Instead, she would use the tactics that humans had learned during millions of years on a world that tried to kill them every day. First, she needed weapons. The ship's armory was heavily guarded, but there were emergency weapon lockers scattered throughout the vessel. Hannah crawled through the tunnels to one located near the medical bay. She had to move very slowly because 2 pirates were stationed. In the corridor outside, through a tiny crack in the wall panel, she watched them. One was a klaxon with bright red coloring on his shell-like skin. The other was from a species she had studied but never seen in person, a vorthak, one of the gas-based life forms that could change shape. Right now, it looked like a tall, thin humanoid made of purple mist. Hannah waited for 20 minutes, learning their patrol pattern. The klaxon walked to one end of the corridor every few minutes while the vorthak stayed near the medical bay door. They talked to each other in a language that sounded like clicks and whistles. When the klaxon moved away for his regular patrol, Hannah acted. She opened the wall panel just wide enough to slip through, moving in complete silence. Human muscles and joints were designed for stealth hunting. Her ancestors had learned to move without sound when tracking dangerous prey on Earth. The vorthak did not have normal vision like solid species. It sensed heat and electrical fields instead. But Hannah had learned about vorthak biology in her xenobiology classes. She knew they had trouble detecting objects that were the same temperature as their surroundings. She pressed herself against the metal wall, letting her body temperature drop to match the cold corridor. Humans could control their body heat better than most species because they had evolved in climates that changed from very hot to very cold. It was uncomfortable, but not impossible. The vorthak's gas form swirled lazily as it waited for its partner to return. It did not notice the small human girl sliding along the wall like a shadow. Hannah reached the emergency locker and quickly entered the access code she had memorized during safety training. Inside were 2 energy pistols, emergency rations, medical supplies, and communications equipment. She took 1 pistol and some medical supplies, leaving everything else so the pirates would not know the locker had been opened. Then she slipped back into the maintenance tunnels before the klaxon returned. Now she was armed. But 1 small pistol would not be enough against 30 pirates. She needed to be smarter than that. Humans were not the strongest or fastest species in the galaxy, but they were among the most adaptable and creative. Time to prove it. Hannah's next target was a lone pirate she had seen guarding the ship's water recycling center. He was a massive creature covered in thick brown fur, probably from a high-gravity world. He looked strong enough to tear a human in half, but Hannah had advantages he would not expect. She made her way through the tunnels to the recycling center and studied the area carefully. The furry alien was sitting on a chair that looked too small for his bulk, clearly bored with guard duty. His weapon was leaning against the wall next to him, just out of easy reach. Hannah knew from her studies that his species, the Ursinians, had excellent hearing and sense of smell but poor eyesight. They were also used to cold climates and did not handle heat well. Perfect. She accessed the environmental controls for that section and gradually raised the temperature. Within minutes, the Ursinian was panting and wiping sweat from his fur. The thick coat that protected him on his frozen homeworld was now making him miserable. Next, She activated the ship's cleaning systems in that area. Automated scrubbers began spraying disinfectant chemicals into the air. The smell would be overwhelming to the Ursinian's sensitive nose and would mask Hana's human scent. When the guard stood up to get away from the heat and chemical smells, Hana struck. She dropped through a ceiling panel directly behind him and used a combat technique instructor Song had taught her. A precise blow to a nerve cluster at the base of his thick neck sent the huge alien crashing to the floor. Unconscious, Hana quickly tied him up with maintenance cables and dragged him into a storage closet. She took his weapon and his communicator, then sealed the closet with an electronic lock. When he woke up, he would be trapped and unable to warn the others. One down, about 29 to go. Her next move was psychological warfare. Humans were natural predators and they understood fear better than most species. Different aliens were afraid of different things, and Hana planned to use those fears against them. She found a section where 3 pirates were working together to search crew quarters. 2 were Klaxons and 1 was a reptilian Sorok. They were being methodical, checking every room for hidden crew members or valuable items. Hana studied them through the security cameras and formed a plan. Klaxons were social insects who relied on pheromone communication and group coordination. They feared anything that disrupted their chemical signals or isolated them from their hive-mates. She accessed the ship's fire suppression system and triggered a false alarm in one of the rooms the pirates had already searched. Clouds of foam and gas filled the area, creating confusion and blocking the Klaxons' ability to smell their companions' pheromones. In the chaos, Hana struck again. She stunned one Klaxon with her captured energy weapon and dragged him into a maintenance tunnel before his companions could react. The other pirates found only empty rooms filled with suppression foam and no sign of what had happened to their friend. The captured Klaxon woke up hours later, tied up in a dark, cramped space with no idea where he was or how he had gotten there. When he tried to use his communicator, he found only static. Hana had damaged it just enough to make it unreliable. Fear began to spread among the remaining pirates. 2 of their people had vanished without a trace. There were no signs of fighting, no bodies, and no explanation. Something was hunting them, and they had no idea what it was. The pirate leader, the silver-scaled Sorok, started pulling his people back into smaller groups. He posted extra guards and changed their patrol routes. He was clearly experienced enough to know that something was very wrong, but Hana was just getting started. She had learned patience from Earth's hunters and cunning from Earth's survivors. The pirates thought they were dealing with a helpless training ship, but they had awakened something much more dangerous. Every few hours, another pirate would disappear. Sometimes they were found later, tied up in impossible locations. Sometimes they simply vanished completely. The ones who were found alive told stories of being attacked by shadows, of equipment failing at the worst possible moments, of feeling like they were being watched by invisible predators. The galaxy had many peaceful species that solved problems through discussion and cooperation. But humans came from a world where the weak died and only the strong and clever survived. Earth had taught them to be hunters, and now Hana was showing 30 professional pirates why that was a very bad thing for their health. She was no longer just trying to rescue her friends. She was teaching the entire galaxy a lesson about what happened when someone threatened a human's family. By the 6th hour of her private war, Hana had captured or eliminated 8 pirates without killing anyone. She was proud of that fact. Humans had a reputation for violence, but she wanted to prove they could be merciful even when fighting for their lives. However, her mercy was about to be tested. She watched through the security cameras as the pirate leader grew more frustrated and angry. The silver-scaled Sorok was pacing in the dining hall, shouting orders at his remaining crew. His name was Captain Vex Thornscale. According to the communications she had intercepted, Thornscale grabbed one of the prisoners, a young Andorian diplomat, and dragged him to the center of the room. He pulled out a curved blade and held it to the diplomat's throat. Through the ship's communication system, he spoke in standard galactic. "Attention, Ghost. I know someone is playing games with my crew. You have taken 8 of my people, and I want them back. You have 1 hour to surrender yourself or I start killing prisoners. One every hour until you show yourself or until they are all dead. Hannah felt ice in her stomach. This was what she had feared most. Her actions had put the prisoners in greater danger. She watched helplessly as Thornscale kicked Captain Park when he tried to stand up and protest. The human captain will die first, Thornscale continued. Then the ambassador? Then the students one by one? Your choice, Ghost. Show yourself and face me, or watch them all die because of your games. Hannah closed her eyes and took deep breaths. Instructor Song had taught her that emotions could be powerful tools if controlled properly, but they could also lead to fatal mistakes. She needed to think clearly now more than ever. She had learned something important from intercepting the pirates' communications. They were not just random criminals. They were working for someone called the Collector, who wanted specific information about human military capabilities. Ambassador Choi carried classified data about Earth's new defense systems, and several of the crew members had knowledge that could be valuable to hostile governments. More importantly, Hannah had discovered the identity of the traitor. Security footage from before the attack showed Corporal Teemin Yoon, one of Ambassador Choi's bodyguards, sending the signal that had alerted the pirates to the ship's location and defenses. He was sitting among the prisoners now, pretending to be as scared as everyone else. That gave her an idea. A dangerous, complicated idea that would require perfect timing and a lot of luck. But it was better than surrendering and hoping the pirates would keep their word. First, she needed to cause more fear among the remaining pirates. Fear would make them sloppy and desperate. She had been picking them off quietly, but now it was time to be more dramatic. She found 2 pirates guarding the ship's main computer core. They were nervous and jumpy, constantly looking over their shoulders. One was a tall, thin alien with blue skin and 4 arms. The other was something that looked like a walking plant with dozens of eyes on stalks. Hannah had studied both species in her xenobiology classes. The blue-skinned Azurians were afraid of fire because their planet had very little oxygen and they had never evolved to deal with flames. The plant-like thornlings were terrified of cutting tools because any damage to their bark-like skin could be fatal. She triggered the ship's fire suppression system, but instead of foam, she released harmless smoke that looked and smelled like a serious fire. The Azurian panicked immediately, abandoning his post to run toward what he thought was safety. The thornling tried to follow but was too slow with his thick, woody legs. Hannah dropped down from a ceiling panel behind the thornling and pressed her energy pistol against his trunk. The alien froze in terror, his eye stalks turning to look at her. Listen carefully, she whispered in Standard Galactic. I am not going to hurt you, but I need you to deliver a message to your captain. Tell him the ghost wants to make a deal. The thornling's voice sounded like wind through leaves. What what kind of deal? I will trade myself for the prisoners. But the exchange has to happen in the cargo bay, and I choose the time and method. Tell him he has 2 hours to decide. If he refuses or tries to trick me, his people will keep disappearing until none are left. She stunned the thornling with her weapon set to low power, just enough to knock him unconscious for a few minutes. When he woke up, he would deliver her message. The other pirate would probably find him and help carry the news to Thornscale. Now came the hard part. Hannah had to prepare for a confrontation that she could not win through normal means. Thornscale was a professional warrior from a species known for their fighting ability. He was bigger, stronger, and more experienced than her. But she had advantages. He would not expect that she spent the next hour setting up her trap in the cargo bay. The large space was filled with shipping containers and maintenance equipment, perfect for what she had in mind. She modified several systems, rerouted power conduits, and prepared backup plans for her backup plans. While she worked, she thought about her family back on Earth. Her parents had wanted her to stay safe in their restaurant, serving food to regular customers who never threatened anyone. They had been afraid when she joined the academy, worried that their daughter would be hurt or killed exploring dangerous space. Now she was about to face a deadly alien. Warrior in single combat, with the lives of 30 innocent people depending on her success. Her parents had been right to worry. But they had also raised her to never abandon people who needed help, and to never give up even when the situation seemed hopeless. That was the human way. That was the Deathworld way. Hannah finished her preparations and sent a message through the ship's communication system. Captain Thornscale, this is the Ghost. I accept your challenge. Cargo Bay 7 in 30 minutes. Come alone and bring proof that the prisoners are still alive. If you try to bring backup or trick me, the deal is off and your people will continue to disappear. She waited in the shadows of the cargo bay, watching the entrance. Her heart was beating fast, but her hands were steady. She had done everything she could to prepare. Now it was time to find out if a 19-year-old human girl could defeat a professional pirate captain and save her friends. The cargo bay doors opened, and Captain Vex Thornscale walked in alone. He was even bigger than he had looked on the security cameras, with silver scales that gleamed like armor and yellow eyes that glowed in the dim light. He carried a massive energy rifle in one hand and a curved sword on his hip. "Show yourself, little ghost," he called out in a voice like grinding stones. "Time to end this game." Hannah stepped out of the shadows with her hands raised, showing that she was not holding any weapons. She looked small and helpless compared to the huge Sorok warrior, exactly the way she wanted to look. "I am here," she said calmly. "Now prove to me that my friends are still alive and we can finish this." Thornscale smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. "You are just a child, a human child. You have caused me much trouble, but now it ends. When I kill you, your species will learn not to interfere with my work." Hannah smiled back. It was not a nice smile. It was the smile of a predator who had led her prey exactly where she wanted them. "Captain," she said softly, "you have no idea what you are dealing with. Let me show you why Earth is called a death world." Captain Thornscale raised his energy rifle and aimed it at Hannah's chest. "You talk too much, little human. Your friends will join you in death soon enough." "Wait," Hannah said, taking a step backward. "You promised to show me proof that they are alive. I kept my part of the deal. Keep yours." The Sorok captain paused and activated a small device on his belt. A holographic image appeared in the air between them, showing the dining hall where the prisoners were being held. Hannah could see Captain Park, Minho, Ambassador Choi, and all the others sitting under guard. They looked scared but unharmed. "Satisfied?" Thornscale asked. "Now you die." "Actually," Hannah said, "now you learn something about human biology." She pressed a hidden button on her belt, and several things happened at once. The lights in the cargo bay switched to a deep red color that was almost too dark for most species to see clearly. Sorok eyes were adapted for bright daylight and had trouble with dim, colored light. But human eyes evolved for hunting at dawn. And dusk could see perfectly at the same time. The artificial gravity in the room increased to twice normal strength. Thornscale stumbled as the extra weight hit him. His species came from a world with light gravity, and the sudden increase made him feel like he was carrying another full-grown Sorok on his back. But Hannah was from Earth, where gravity was already strong, and life was a constant struggle against planetary forces that tried to crush everything. The extra weight felt natural to her. She moved like she was dancing while Thornscale struggled to stay upright. "Impossible," he gasped, trying to aim his rifle. "How are you doing this?" "Earth is not like other worlds," Hannah explained as she circled around him. "Our gravity is heavy. Our air is thick. Our weather tries to kill us every day. We evolved to handle things that would destroy other species." She pressed another button, and the air circulation system activated with a loud roar. Powerful fans created wind currents that filled the cargo bay with swirling air. Loose objects flew around the room like missiles. Thornscale had to duck and cover his face, but Hannah moved through the chaos like it was a gentle breeze. "Humans learned to hunt in storms," she continued, her voice somehow carrying clearly through the noise. "We learned to fight when we could barely see, when the wind tried to knock us down, when every breath was a struggle. Your people never had to do that." Thornscale fired his rifle wildly, but the shots went wide. He could barely see his target. The gravity was crushing him, and the wind kept pushing him off balance. Hannah was like a ghost. Appearing and disappearing in the swirling air and dim red light, she reached one of the shipping containers. She had prepared and activated another system. Supercooled air began flowing from the ship's refrigeration unit, dropping the temperature in the cargo bay dramatically. Within seconds, frost was forming on the walls. Soar, okay, were cold-blooded reptiles. Cold made them slow and weak. But humans were warm-blooded and had evolved in ice ages that lasted thousands of years. Hannah's body automatically adjusted to the cold, keeping her muscles warm and flexible while Thornscale began to shiver and slow down. "This is not possible," he said through chattering teeth. "You are just one small human. I am one human who is very angry about what you did to my friends," Hannah replied. "And I am from a world that taught me never to give up." She activated the final part of her trap. The shipping containers around the room opened, revealing that she had filled them with training equipment from the ship's gymnasium. Weighted exercise gear, elastic cables, and impact padding flew out into the artificial storm she had created, but these were not random objects. Hannah had calculated their movement patterns. She had studied the air currents and gravity effects. The flying equipment formed a complex pattern that looked chaotic, but was actually very precise. Thornscale tried to dodge the flying objects, but he was too slow and cold. A weighted training bar hit him in the shoulder, spinning him around. Elastic cables wrapped around his legs, tangling him up. Foam padding struck him in the face, blinding him temporarily. Hannah moved through the storm of flying objects like she had choreographed the entire dance. She knew exactly where everything would be at every moment because she had planned it that way. This was human intelligence applied to combat, not just strength or speed, but the ability to turn the environment itself into a weapon. "Surrender," she called out as Thornscale fell to his knees, wrapped in cables and struggling against the cold and gravity. "Call off your people and let my friends go. You have lost." "Never," he snarled, trying to reach for his sword with numb fingers. "I am Captain Vex Thornscale. I do not surrender to children." "Then you force me to be less gentle?" Hannah said sadly. She appeared beside him faster than he could track, moving with the fluid grace of a species that had learned to hunt the most dangerous predators on a hostile world. Her small fist struck a nerve cluster on his neck, and Thornscale collapsed, paralyzed but conscious. "You see," she explained as she secured him with the same cables that had trapped him, "humans do not just survive through strength. We survive through intelligence, adaptation, and the willingness to do whatever is necessary to protect our families." She activated her communicator and spoke to the remaining pirates throughout the ship. "This is the Ghost. Your captain has been defeated. You have one choice. Surrender now, and you will be treated fairly when the authorities arrive. Continue fighting, and I will hunt each of you down individually. You have seen what I can do. Choose wisely." The response came quickly. The pirates began laying down their weapons and releasing the prisoners. They had seen 8 of their companions disappear mysteriously and their captain defeated by a single human girl. They had no desire to continue fighting against something they could not understand or defeat. Within an hour, the ship was secure. The prisoners were free, and the pirates were locked in the ship's detention cells. Captain Park took command of the bridge and sent distress signals to nearby Galactic Authority ships. Hannah sat in the cargo bay next to the unconscious Thornscale, feeling exhausted but victorious. Minho found her there and sat down beside her. Without saying anything, sometimes friendship did not need words. "How did you do it?" he finally asked. "How did one person defeat 30 armed pirates?" Hannah smiled tiredly. "I remembered what Instructor Song taught us. The best weapon is not the biggest gun or the strongest armor. The best weapon is knowing your enemy's weaknesses and using your own strengths." "But still," Minho insisted, "you are just one person." "No," Hannah corrected him. "I am one human. And humans are from a death world. That means we are very hard to kill, and even harder to stop when someone threatens our family." Captain Park arrived with a medical team to check on the prisoners and secure the pirates. He looked at Hana with a mixture of pride and amazement. "Cadet Kim," he said formally, "you have brought great honor to the human species and to the Academy. Your actions today will be remembered throughout the galaxy." Hana stood and saluted. "Just doing my duty, sir. Protecting my shipmates and completing the mission?" But she knew it was more than that. Today she had shown the galaxy something important. About humans. They were not just violent primitives from a dangerous world. They were survivors, protectors, and warriors who would never abandon their friends or surrender to impossible odds. The galaxy was about to learn a new lesson about the species from Earth, and that lesson would change everything. The rescue ships arrived 12 hours later to find something they had never seen before. A Galactic Academy training vessel had been attacked by the notorious Talon Brotherhood pirates, but instead of finding disaster, they found victory. 30 professional criminals were in detention cells, and not a single hostage had been seriously injured. The story spread across galactic communication networks faster than light speed. News reporters from dozens of species wanted to interview the human cadet who had single-handedly defeated an entire pirate crew. Military analysts studied the security footage, trying to understand tactics they had never seen before. Hana found herself famous throughout the galaxy, but she did not enjoy the attention. She sat in Captain Park's quarters giving her official report while news crews waited outside the ship. Through the windows, she could see the flashing lights of dozens of ships that had come to investigate the incident. "Tell me about the traitor," Captain Park said, reviewing the evidence Hana had gathered. "How did you identify Corporal Yoon?" "I traced the communication signal that was sent just before the attack," Hana explained. "It came from his personal device. I also found encrypted messages on his equipment showing payments from the Talon Brotherhood over the past 6 months." Captain Park's face was grim. A betrayal from within was always the worst kind of security breach. What was his motivation? "Money," Hana said simply. "The pirates paid him enough rare metals to buy a small moon. He thought it would be a simple hijacking where everyone would be released for ransom. He claims he did not know they planned to kill witnesses." "Do you believe him?" Hana considered the question carefully. "I think he is telling the truth about not expecting murder, but he is lying about everything else. He gave them detailed information about our defenses, our personnel, and our mission. He knew they wanted Ambassador Troy's classified data. That makes him guilty of treason, not just theft." Captain Park nodded and made notes in his report. "The authorities will deal with him according to galactic law. Now tell me about something else. How did you know so much about alien biology and psychology? Your tactics were incredibly specific to each species." "I studied," Hana said with a small smile. "Instructor Song always said that knowledge was the deadliest weapon in the galaxy. I memorized the weaknesses and fears of every species we might encounter. I never thought I would need to use that information for combat, but it saved everyone's life." "You did more than just use your studies," Captain Park observed. "You showed something about human nature that the galaxy has never seen before. Most species think of humans as either primitive warriors or dangerous unpredictables. You proved that we are intelligent, adaptable, and capable of incredible restraint even under extreme pressure." That was true. Hana had captured or defeated 30 armed criminals without killing a single one. She had used fear and confusion as weapons instead of lethal force. The galaxy was amazed that a species from a death world could show such mercy while being so effective in combat. A communication alert sounded, and Captain Park activated the ship's main screen. The face of Admiral Chun Rodriguez, head of the Galactic Military Academy, appeared. She was a stern woman with gray hair and the bearing of someone who had commanded fleets in major battles. "Captain Park, Cadet Kim," the Admiral said formally, "I am calling to personally commend your actions during this crisis. Cadet Kim, your performance has been reviewed by the highest levels of Galactic Command. We are offering you immediate promotion to lieutenant and assignment to any unit you choose." Hana was surprised. Jumping from cadet to lieutenant was almost unheard of, and being able to choose her assignment was an incredible honor. Officers usually had to earn such privileges through years of service. "Thank you, Admiral," she said carefully. "But I would like to finish my education at the academy first." "I still have much to learn," Admiral Rodriguez smiled. "I expected you would say that. Very well. But I want you to know that every military organization in the galaxy has requested your transfer. The Andorian Deep Space Fleet, the Vulcan Science Command, even the normally isolationist Romulan Empire has expressed interest in your tactical abilities." "I appreciate the offers," Hannah replied, "but I want to serve with other humans. Earth needs officers who understand both human capabilities and alien psychology. I can do more good helping my own species find its place in the galaxy." "Wise answer," the Admiral agreed. "In that case, I have a different offer. When you graduate, would you consider becoming an instructor at the academy? We need someone to teach courses on cross-species tactical analysis and Deathworld combat techniques." Hannah had not expected that suggestion, but it appealed to her. Teaching other cadets how to understand and work with alien species would help prevent future conflicts and misunderstandings. "I would be honored, Admiral." After the call ended, Captain Park leaned back in his chair and studied Hannah thoughtfully. "You realize what you have done, do you not? You have changed how the entire galaxy sees humanity. Before this incident, we were considered dangerous outsiders. Now we are seen as potential protectors and allies. Is that a good thing?" Hannah asked. "It is a necessary thing," Captain Park replied. "Humans cannot remain isolated on Earth forever. We need to find our role in galactic civilization. Your actions have shown that we can be both strong and wise, both fierce and merciful. That is exactly the reputation we need." A soft knock on the door interrupted them. Minho entered, looking nervous but determined. "Excuse me, Captain," he said, "but there are news reporters outside who want to interview Hannah. They are from major networks across dozens of worlds. Some of them have never interviewed a human before." Hannah groaned. She did not want to be famous. She just wanted to finish her education and serve her species honorably. "You have to talk to them," Captain Park said gently. "Like it or not, you are now a symbol of human potential. What you say will influence how billions of beings think about Earth and its people." "What should I tell them?" Hannah asked. "Tell them the truth," Captain Park advised. "Tell them that humans are not monsters or savages. We are people who care about our friends and families. We are willing to fight when we must, but we prefer peace when possible. We are from a difficult world, but that made us strong enough to help others, not just hurt them." Hannah thought about that advice as she prepared to face the reporters. She had never wanted to be a spokesperson for her entire species, but sometimes people did not get to choose their role in history. An hour later, she stood before cameras that would broadcast her words to trillions of beings across the galaxy. She looked small and young compared to the alien reporters, but her voice was clear and confident. "I am not a hero," she began. "I am just a human who did what any of my people would do when their friends were threatened. We protect those we care about. We do not give up when things seem impossible. And we remember that strength is not just about fighting. True strength is knowing when to fight and when to show mercy." The questions came rapidly. How had she defeated so many enemies? Was she specially trained? Did all humans have such abilities? "Every human has these abilities," she answered honestly. "We come from a world that tested us every day. We learned to adapt, to survive, to work together when things were difficult. These are not special powers. They are just the result of evolution on a planet that demanded the best from its children." A Vulcan reporter asked, "Do you believe humans are superior to other species?" "No," Hannah said firmly. "Every species has strengths and weaknesses. Humans are good at some things and poor at others. What makes us different is not superiority but diversity. Earth taught us to handle many different challenges. That makes us good at adapting to new situations." The interview continued for another hour. When it was over, Hannah felt exhausted but hopeful. She had tried to show the galaxy that humans were not a threat to be feared, but potential friends and allies who could help solve problems. That night, as she lay in her bunk listening to the quiet hum of the ship's engines, she thought about the future. The galaxy was vast and full of wonders she had not yet seen. There would be new challenges and new opportunities to prove what humans could accomplish. She was ready for whatever came next. 3 months after the pirate incident, Hannah found herself back at the Galactic Academy on the moon of Kepler Prime. The massive complex housed students from over 50 different species, all learning to work together in an increasingly connected galaxy. But now, everything was different. Wherever she walked, other cadets stopped to stare. Some looked at her with admiration, others with curiosity, and a few with fear. The story of the human girl who defeated 30 pirates had become legend, growing more dramatic with each retelling. Some versions claimed she had killed dozens of enemies with her bare hands. Others said she could control gravity and weather with her mind. "I hate being famous," Hannah confided to Minho as they walked to their xenobiology class. "People expect me to be some kind of superhuman warrior. I am just a normal person who got lucky." "You are not normal," Minho replied with a grin. "Normal people do not turn spaceships into weapons and defeat entire pirate crews, but you are still my friend, and that is what matters." Their instructor, Professor Kalen Vex, was a tall, blue-skinned Andorian with white hair and antennae that twitched when he was thinking. He had been teaching xenobiology for 40 years and was considered one of the galaxy's leading experts on interspecies relations. "Today we will discuss the concept of evolutionary pressure," Professor Vex announced to the class. "Different environments create different survival adaptations. Miss Kim, would you care to share some insights about Deathworld evolution?" Hannah sighed internally. Every class now seemed to include questions about her experiences in Earth's harsh environment. She stood and faced her fellow students, who included Vulcans, Andorians, Klaxons, and several other species. "Earth is classified as a Class 12 death world because of extreme environmental challenges," she began. "We have violent weather, dangerous predators, deadly diseases, and natural disasters that can destroy entire cities. Humans evolved to handle constant stress and rapid change." A Vulcan student raised her hand. "But violence and aggression are considered primitive traits. How do you reconcile your species' evolutionary background with civilized behavior?" It was a fair question, though Hannah was tired of hearing variations of it. "Violence and aggression are tools," she explained. "Like any tools, they can be used wisely or foolishly. Humans learn to use them only when necessary. We also learned cooperation, compassion, and creativity. A species that only knew violence would have destroyed itself long ago." Professor Vex nodded approvingly. "An excellent point. Survival pressure creates not just physical adaptations, but behavioral ones as well. Humans developed strong social bonds and problem-solving abilities because individual strength alone was not enough on their world." After class, Hannah was approached by a group of younger cadets from various species. They looked nervous but determined. "Excuse me, Ms. Kim," said a small, furry creature from the Tellarite species. "We were wondering if you could teach us some of your combat techniques." "I am not a combat instructor," Hannah replied gently. "That is not my specialty." "But you defeated all those pirates," insisted a tall insectoid shindy. "You must know secret fighting methods." Hannah considered how to explain without disappointing them. "I did not win because of special fighting techniques. I won because I understood my enemies' weaknesses and used my environment as a weapon. Those are things you can learn in regular classes if you pay attention. Could you show us anyway?" asked the Tellarite hopefully. Hannah looked at their eager faces and made a decision. "All right. But we do this properly in the training center, with safety equipment. And you have to promise to use what you learn only for defense, never for bullying or hurting others." They all agreed enthusiastically. An hour later, they were in the Academy's combat training facility. Hannah had them practice basic awareness exercises, learning to notice their surroundings, understanding how different species moved and thought, and recognizing environmental advantages. "The most important lesson," she told them, "is that fighting should always be the last choice. If you can solve a problem without violence, that is always better. But if you must fight, fight smart, not hard. Word of the impromptu training session spread quickly. Within days, Hana found herself giving regular lessons to groups of cadets who wanted to learn Deathworld tactics. She tried to focus on awareness, problem-solving, and nonviolent solutions, but the students were most interested in the dramatic combat techniques. The situation came to the attention of Admiral Rodriguez, who called Hana to her office on the Academy's administrative level. The Admiral's office was decorated with artifacts from dozens of worlds and mementos from her long military career. "Cadet Kim," the Admiral said, "I understand you have been conducting unofficial training sessions with other students." "Yes, ma'am," Hana admitted. "I hope I have not violated any regulations." "On the contrary," Admiral Rodriguez smiled. "The instructors have reported significant improvements in situational awareness and creative problem-solving among the students who attend your sessions. What you are teaching them goes beyond simple combat techniques." "I try to emphasize that violence is only one tool among many," Hana explained. "Most problems can be solved through understanding and cooperation." "Exactly," the Admiral agreed. "Which is why I'm making you an official instructor. You will teach a new course called Adaptive Problem Solving. It will be required for all third-year cadets." Hana was surprised, "But I am still a student myself. How can I teach other students?" "You will continue your own studies while teaching," Admiral Rodriguez explained. "This is not uncommon for exceptional cadets. Your experiences have given you insights that even senior instructors lack. The galaxy needs leaders who understand both cooperation and conflict." The new teaching assignment proved to be more challenging than Hana had expected. Her students came from species with completely different ways of thinking. Vulcans approached problems through logic and analysis. Andorians preferred direct action. Klaxons thought collectively rather than individually. Each group needed different teaching methods, but that was exactly what made the class valuable. Students learned not just how to solve problems, but how to work with people who thought differently than they did. They discovered that diversity of thought was a strength, not a weakness. One particular lesson involved a simulated crisis, where students had to work together to evacuate a damaged space station. The Vulcan students calculated optimal evacuation routes. The Andorian students organized emergency teams. The Klaxon students coordinated group movements. And the human students, following Hana's example, found creative ways to use the station systems to help the evacuation. "You see," Hana told the class afterward, "no single species has all the answers. But when we combine our different strengths and perspectives, we can solve problems that would be impossible for any of us alone." A Romulan student who rarely spoke in class raised his hand. "Miss Kim, is this why humans have been successful in the galaxy despite being newcomers? Because you learn to work with others who are different from you?" "Partly," Hana agreed. "But also because Earth taught us that survival requires constant adaptation. We learned to change our methods when old ones stopped working. That flexibility serves us well when dealing with new species and new situations." As the semester progressed, Hana noticed changes in her students and in herself. The cadets from different species began forming friendships across cultural boundaries. They started thinking of themselves not as Vulcans or Andorians or Klaxons, but as Academy students working toward common goals, and Hana discovered that teaching was as rewarding as learning. Every question from a student made her think more deeply about her own experiences and beliefs. Every successful cooperation between former rivals proved that the galaxy's different species could indeed work together, but she also knew that her real test was still coming. Graduation was approaching, and with it, real assignments in the galaxy beyond the Academy's protected environment. The skills she was teaching would soon be tested in situations where failure could mean death for her and her shipmates. The galaxy was watching to see what this new generation of officers would accomplish. And Hana Kim, the Deathworld Cadet who had shocked the galaxy with her courage and wisdom, would be leading the way into an uncertain but hopeful future. 2 years later, Lieutenant Hana Kim stood on the bridge of the GSV Unity, watching through the main screen as her ship approached the neutral zone between Federation space and the territory of the aggressive Dominion Empire. As the ship's new cultural liaison officer, her job was to help prevent the kind of misunderstandings that could start wars. The Unity was not a warship, but a diplomatic vessel carrying representatives from 12 different species to peace negotiations. The talks had been arranged after months of increasing tension between the Federation and the Dominion. Border skirmishes were becoming more frequent, and both sides were building up their military forces. "We are receiving a transmission from the Dominion fleet," reported the ship's communications officer, a efficient Vulcan named Tren. "They are demanding to inspect our cargo and passenger manifest." Captain Sarah Chun, a veteran human officer, with 20 years of experience, frowned at the message. "That is not part of the agreed protocol? They have no authority to search our ship in neutral space." Hannah studied the tactical display, which showed 6 Dominion warships surrounding their single diplomatic vessel. The enemy ships were much larger and more heavily armed than the Unity. If this turned into a fight, the outcome would not be in doubt. "Captain," she said carefully, "may I suggest a different approach? What do you have in mind, Lieutenant?" "Let me talk to them," Hannah proposed. "Not as a Federation officer, but as a human from Earth. The Dominion has heard the stories about what happened with the pirates. They might be curious enough to listen." Captain Chun considered this for a moment. The Dominion were a proud warrior species who respected strength above all else. They had been impressed by reports of human combat abilities, but they also considered humans to be unpredictable newcomers to galactic politics. "Very well," the captain decided, "but be careful. The Dominion do not appreciate what they see as weakness or deception." Hannah moved to the communication station and opened a channel to the lead Dominion ship. The screen filled with the image of a tall, imposing figure in elaborate armor. General Thek Vioarn was known throughout the galaxy as one of the Dominion's most successful military commanders. "I am General Vioarn of the Dominion Imperial Fleet," he announced in a voice like distant thunder. "You will submit to inspection or be destroyed." "General Vioarn," Hannah replied respectfully. "I am Lieutenant Hannah Kim of Earth. I request permission to speak with you directly about this situation." The general's expression changed slightly. "You are the human who defeated the Talon Brotherhood." With her bare hands, Hannah suppressed a sigh. The story had grown even more exaggerated over time. "I am the human who was involved in that incident, yes. But the reports have been somewhat enhanced for dramatic effect." "Interesting, General," Vioarn mused. "Very well, human. Speak, but make it quick. My patience is limited." "General, I understand your desire to ensure our ship poses no threat to Dominion security. However, searching a diplomatic vessel would violate the neutral zone agreements that both our governments have signed. This could be seen as an act of aggression." "The Federation has sent spies disguised as diplomats before," the general replied curtly. "We will not be fooled again." "That is a fair concern," Hannah acknowledged. "But consider this, if we were carrying spies or weapons, would we really approach your fleet so openly? A real spy mission would use stealth ships and secret routes. We are broadcasting our presence and following all agreed protocols because we have nothing to hide." General Vioarn leaned forward in his command chair. "You speak with logic, human." "But logic can be a disguise for deception." "True," Hannah agreed. "So let me offer you something better than logic. Let me offer you my word. As a human from Earth." The bridge of the Unity fell silent. Everyone knew that Hannah was taking a significant risk. If the general rejected her offer, it could make the situation worse. "Your word?" General Vioarn asked, sounding intrigued. "What does that mean to me?" "Humans from Deathworlds do not lie to warriors," Hannah explained. "Our survival depends on truth and trust between people who fight together. When a human gives her word to a fellow warrior, it is a bond that cannot be broken without dishonor." "And you consider me a warrior?" "I consider you one of the finest military commanders in the galaxy," Hannah said honestly. "Your victories at the Battle of Kepler's Star and the Siege of Rigel 7 are studied at military academies throughout Federation space. You have earned respect through skill and courage. General Veoran was clearly pleased by this recognition from someone whose own military reputation had impressed his people. Continue. I give you my word as a human warrior that this ship carries no spies, no weapons beyond standard defensive systems, and no materials that could threaten Dominion security. We are here only to attend peace negotiations that could benefit both our peoples. The general studied her through the screen for a long moment. If you are lying, human, I will hunt you down personally and make you pay for the insult. I understand. And accept those terms, Hannah replied calmly. Very well. General Veoran made a gesture to someone off-screen. My ships will escort you to the negotiation site. But know this, I will be watching your people carefully during the talks. Any sign of deception or treachery will be met with immediate and overwhelming force. I would expect nothing less from a commander of your reputation, Hannah answered. The communication ended, and the Dominion ships moved into escort formation around the Unity. Captain Chun let out a breath she had been holding. Well done, Lieutenant, she said. How did you know that would work? I studied Dominion culture extensively, Hannah explained. They value personal honor and direct communication. They also respect strength, but they define strength as more than just military power. To them, someone who will stand by their word even when facing superior force shows true warrior spirit. And if you had been wrong, Hannah shrugged, then we would probably be debris floating in space right now. But sometimes you have to take risks to prevent bigger conflicts. The peace negotiations that followed were challenging but ultimately successful. The Federation and Dominion reached agreements on border security, trade rights, and dispute resolution procedures. Several times during the talks, misunderstandings arose that could have derailed the entire process. Each time, Hannah found ways to bridge the gap between different ways of thinking. When Vulcan logic clashed with Dominion pride, she helped each side understand the other's perspective. When Andorian directness offended sensitive alien sensibilities, she found diplomatic ways to rephrase harsh truths. The breakthrough came when a young Dominion negotiator accused the Federation of trying to weaken his people through economic dependency. The accusation created angry responses from several Federation delegates, and the talks seemed about to collapse. May I ask a question? Hannah interjected during the heated exchange. What would it take for the Dominion to feel secure in any agreement we might reach? The young Dominion representative was surprised by the directness of the question. We would need guarantees that our sovereignty would be respected, that our military strength would not be undermined, and that any agreements would be enforced equally on both sides. Those are reasonable requirements, Hannah agreed. And I think you will find that the Federation shares those same concerns. We also want our sovereignty respected, our defenses maintained, and fair enforcement of any agreements. She turned to address both delegations. Perhaps instead of arguing about what each side wants to take from the other, we should discuss what both sides need to feel secure and prosperous. The shift in perspective changed the entire tone of the negotiations. Instead of viewing the talks as a zero-sum game where one side's gain required the other's loss, both groups began looking for solutions that would benefit everyone. When the negotiations concluded successfully, General Veoran personally thanked Hannah for her role in the process. You have honored your word, human, he said with something that might have been a smile. Perhaps there is hope for peace between our peoples after all. There is always hope, General, Hannah replied, as long as warriors like us are willing to fight for it. 6 months later, Hannah received orders to return to the Galactic Academy as a full instructor. She would be teaching advanced courses in interspecies relations and conflict resolution to senior cadets, preparing for diplomatic and military careers. As she prepared to leave the Unity, Captain Chun gave her a final evaluation that would become part of Academy legend. Lieutenant Kim represents the best of what the human species brings to galactic civilization, the captain wrote. She combines the strength and determination of her Deathworld heritage with wisdom, compassion, and an unshakable commitment to peace. She has proven that true power lies not in the ability to destroy one's enemies, but in the ability to turn enemies into allies. The galaxy had watched a human cadet grow from a frightened girl hiding in maintenance tunnels to a respected officer who could prevent wars with words and courage. The story of Hana Kim had become more than entertainment. It had become proof that different species could indeed work together to build a better future. And in classrooms throughout the galaxy, young beings of many species studied her example and learned that strength without wisdom was just destruction, but wisdom backed by strength could change the universe.